Hello, welcome to this episode of Connecting Cowichan. I'm your host Joseph, and today we are joined with special guest Wayne Paige. Wayne, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Ay native siya manasiya sinansa sinachten. Helpminum name sinachten. My given name is Wayne Paige Sr. Thank you. Here and there, I'm a retired fishery officer from Cowichan tribes. I worked there for over 40 years, being a manager.
So, in today's episode, we are going to be discussing fishing. And fishing is a very, very large part of the Coast Salish culture. And we have primarily done spear fishing. There are other methods of fishing as well. And today, Wayne and I will be discussing that.
Okay. The spear fishing, it's like I said, I lived here all my life, and my grandfather made me my first spear. I had an old bike that had silver rods on it, and he cut them up and put it together for me to, as a young man, for my first spear. And we used to fish a lot in the river. In the early years, the Chinook salmon used to migrate, used to last a run, come in, last over 2 weeks. Now today, we'd be lucky if we get a day of the run, maybe 2 days, 3 days the most. We used to spearfish, my late brother and I, going up, walking up, spearing fish. Tell my brother John, we got enough, bro, we better go home. He says, yeah. And we start collecting all our fish, what we harvested on our, tie them up, put them together on our spear and our rope and drag them down, right? So, it was fun. My dad had a vehicle, he'd never pick us up. You catch it, you bring it home. He says, you take what is needed, don't you over-harvest. We said, okay, and that's what I grew up with. I just take what's needed, for salmon.
What would the process look like for building their own spear? What would that look like?
It'd be great if they learn how to fish, if they got grandparents or parents, brothers or something to teach them how to fish with a spear. And that's always a plus. I see that happening today, compared to years back. We weren't able to go down the river at a young age, and my grandfather tells us, don't you ever sleep down the river, they'll take your breath away. So we never did go down there as a young man until we got a little older. And today that's happening with a lot of youth spearing. And they have projects for youth today, or last year, etc., too, as well, and building spears, and how do you make them? And unfortunately, I did several projects on spear making, showing them how to tie them together. But the points in rods now today is costly compared to years ago. You build a spear, it's gonna, like the going rate today is $150 or something. If the guys, some guys will build and sell, right? Yeah. And in the younger days, we've never ever sold those. That was our pride and joy to get us salmon for our table. Yeah, but it's projects for Cowichan tribes are and other agencies, school boards want to build spears and show them how to tie it, how to make them, which is a plus. You know, I always say to the youth, you guys are lucky today. These guys are funding you to make spears. And once you finish your spear and you're able to take it home, I say, you, once your spear is made, don't you ever think of selling your spear. You know, that's what's happening in the previous years and today. You know, and it's great now today. You get so many, just about every year that they have spear making projects for the youth, right? So it's good that way.
Practice of fishing going in the future? Do you think that there's going to be more people fishing in the future, or do you think there's going to be less people fishing in the future?
In the future, I think, you know, it might be less because a lot of our youth today don't eat salmon as well. There's a few adults that don't eat salmon. And they grew up that way and not eating it. And, you know, and that's, I always look at the future. I says, what the, you guys just going to be McDonald's people and just go eat McDonald's and stuff? And, you know, they don't eat the salmon, but a lot of the times their parents or whatever, grandparents love salmon or love smoked fish, and we don't have any too much smoked fish in, smokehouses in the community anymore. Yeah.
So, so it could change over the next, we'll say, decade, and we may see people fishing less and less just because there's different food sources available. Though I think they're like the aspect of fishing for Coast Salish is so important because it was a part of our natural diet, and that was our main source of protein. So I think there's a great importance to keeping that aspect of our culture.
Yeah, it's so important to for us to eat salmon, to have all that protein, and it's healthy, and you seem to, as you get older, that you're still okay compared to nowadays from the store-bought food or meat and stuff they inject in you, to inject in the meat, and you know, try to make them grow quicker, and it's totally, you know, not so great compared to how all us people in Cowichan, of how we grew up. There's a few of us, you know, that we grew up along things and grew up in the river, grew up in the mountain eating game, and it's just the way of life for us, especially for me. It's taken me a long time to learn things as I go, watching my late mother, especially doing smoked fish, etc. And how to cut. And it's taken me a while, and I miss that today because my mom was with us all the time cutting fish, prepping it up for smoking, etc. Right? So, yeah. We are just the way of our life, our culture, etc. for in river fishing. How, like I mentioned, how we were brought up by our grandparents and parents of spirit. And it comes a long way for us to live off the Cowichan River, Cooksala rivers. It was so plentiful of salmon, Chinook salmon and coho,
Mm-hmm.
In the previous years. And I say that because we used to swim the river for counting fish, for Chinook salmon and coho are in as well. And it was unreal to see the coho along each side of the banks, and the springs are in the middle. So in the earlier years, we used to count 10,000 coho.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be lucky even if we count 5,000 today. Yeah, so dwindled down. Yeah.
That's definitely quite the difference in between the time frame there. That's quite the drop. One question I did have is about the process of building a spear. What are the teachings behind building a spear? And then what are the teachings behind fishing? And I think we've touched on a couple of them so far.
Building a spear or building anything. My grandparents, my grandfather and my dad would say, have your heart open. Anything that you built, because everything will go proper if you, how it's going to be built. If you're going to get angry, things will happen, or you run into hurdles. And culturally, that's how I was brought up of that. And today, I still use that in groups I'm in at times. I always have a good feeling because our elders always say, you start something, you finish it. And making a spear, you're talking quietly to the spear, putting your thoughts and everything into the spear culturally, and you start putting it all together until it's all done. Once it's all done and you're giving thanks to the Creator and our ancestors for guiding you building these spears. Not too many of our people know of that and follow that, right? So, yeah.